This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of
enough. You can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price that you can get Truefire All Access for. Hi, my name's John Cordy and I work for Behringer. And in this video, I wanted to defend the honor of the Ibanez Tubescreamer. Now, there's a few kind of key folks online who really are not fans of the Tubescreamer at all. So in this video, I wanted to kind of get into some of this and try and understand for myself why it is that people don't like this. Because for me, the Tubescreamer is like and maybe this is part of like the resistance, is that it's so ubiquitous and like pretty much, I don't know exactly the percentage, but like 94% of the online sort of pedal industry is built around the Tubescreamer and like Tubescreamer clones and all that sort of stuff. You think of the Dumble sound, that was inspired by a Tubescreamer into a Fender Bassman, I think Robin Ford was playing. And so, you know, without the Tubescreamer, would you have the Dumble ODS? Would you have things like the Zen Drive? Would you have, you know, all of these tones that I think quite a lot of us are really fond of? Equally, someone like Stevie Ray Vaughan. So folks like Tom Bukovac and Rhett Shull, who are really vocal about not liking a Tubescreamer, I think it's totally fine to have preferences. So it might be kind of interesting to talk in the comments about some of your own things that you don't like that everyone else seems to like. Whether that be, I don't know, Britney Spears or pedals for me, like I've never really got on with fuzz pedals particularly, and then the Boss DS1, I really just haven't found a use for that in my life, and I can't believe that there are like so many people that would buy those that it, you know, often gets to #1 in the top pedals of the year. Certain pieces of gear that I just have an irrational thing about, and I guess even for me as well, I predominantly play single coils to the point where I'd actually kind of avoid humbucker guitars, right? So I'm totally used to having sort of preferences and things that maybe I don't like. Obviously, like a humbucking guitar is like, who can say, you know, I don't use humbuckers? Like, just a bit of fun really, innit? Just a bit of fun. Rhett and Tom, if you're watching, I do apologise. the other thing is the ODR1, which Bukovac really likes, came from the Tubescreamer. This was their attempt, Nobels, at sort of fixing some of the things that they felt were wrong with the Tubescreamer. Likewise, another legendary pedal from my company, Behringer, that Klon, that whole principle there was about a pedal that would actually fix some of the things that someone saw wrong with the Tubescreamer. So anyway, let's try it. Going into a Fender Deluxe Reverb here. Two common complaints. I guess I'm going to say there's maybe three. So one that I think is founded is that there's not a huge amount of level on this. So this is an early overdrive pedal. I think Tubescreamer and the Boss OD1 really start this overdrive arc, and I'm definitely someone who prefers overdrive pedals to distortion pedals for sure. I don't think Rhett is necessarily the same, like more of a fuzz and hard clipping guy, I think. And Bukovac, definitely an ODR1 guy. I think he's got a Greer Lightspeed on his board, which is derived from a Timmy, which is derived from a Tubescreamer. So all of these things, like, they share so much overlap that it's kind of interesting to just pick one specific thing, which is like kind of high or low on the tree, that sprouted all these other things. But yeah, so one, there's not a huge amount of level. So if you're using it as a boost, it is not a ton of that. Two is that there's an amount of like dry signal blended in, which I think some people are quite sensitive to and don't necessarily like. But for me personally, like, in the Dumble world, that's quite a good thing and quite a common thing, like the drive is sort of overlaid over the clean tone. You get this sort of more complex thing where it's kind of two elements fused together rather than it all just being a totally saturated thing. And then the other thing is that there's like a mid push to it, and like I think Tom Bukovac calls it like a tunneling effect, where it sort of focuses your guitar in a certain way, which sounds like a pedal, I think, is one of the things that Tom Bukovac says about it. And other people might think it's like honky and that sort of stuff. But those are some of the common complaints that I see. Are they justified? Obviously, but let's try them out for ourselves. Okay, so I think it might be fair to say that there are certain folks, you know, that were using a Tubescreamer at a time when really there wasn't much else available. So just because Stevie Ray Vaughan used a TS10 or whatever doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for everyone. So here's Tubescreamer. This is an original Nobels ODR1. So if you notice the difference between the two there, I would say it's pretty stark there, right? Let's have a look at how much drive is available on ODR1 as well versus a Tubescreamer. I guess you could stop the video there and kind of go, well, Bukovac has a point, right? Also, I guess as a boost pedal, for example, I should have done this before I made the video, maybe. Like, in terms of as a drive pedal, I think the ODR1's more natural. And as a boost pedal too, right? So on both counts, like whether you're just using it for drive or just using it for
for clipping, like the metal screamer here, which is a Tubescreamer, basically a TS10, can't really compete on either count. Now, I think one of the troubles that I've had with the ODR1 Live though is that it's actually quite bass heavy, but it does clean up really well. I need to get rid of the ODR1 here because this is going to make this video very difficult to make because it just sounds so good. So maybe that's an argument, right? If you've not tried some of these other pedals, then maybe that could be the Stevie Ray defense, right? Where it's like, well, he just didn't have a ton of choice. Now, this is a Gritador, which is from Brown Amplification. I think this is a bit of a modification. Like, it has more level and that sort of stuff, so it has a boost. So I think there are modern variations of a Tubescreamer. I do really appreciate a Tubescreamer for. So in most of this stuff here, I'm playing like chords, right? And I do agree. The Gritador actually fixes that. Like a really nice kind of compressed feel to it. And I've been on a gig before where I was using like a Marshall Friedman Dirty Shirley type thing, and I was like, this is kind of just too, there's not enough mid stuff. I ended up using my 5-watt World bus pedal on to kind of fill those mids. So I think it's also one of those things where it really depends what you're plugging into. This is a fairly scoopy. Deluxe Reverb. Now in isolation, the ODR1 like smokes it, but actually in a mix, I feel like it cleans up the muddy aspect in the bottom end. But hearing them side by side, I can see why that clean blend would annoy people. So when you stack them together, you get quite an... Maybe they had a point. I don't know. I just feel like there's some things that it can do quite well, but actually having tried it next to something else which is, you know, purportedly fixing what the Tubescreamer gets wrong, I can kind of see their point. So this is not exactly what I hope this video would be. And my defense of a Tubescreamer has fallen apart when I compare it to an original Nobels ODR1. So there that is, not what I meant to happen. But, I don't know, let me know if you're a fan of the Tubescreamer and other irrational kind of things that you feel like you don't get on with, that maybe they are okay. But Tubescreamer for me does a certain thing really pretty well, and then obviously it does other things not so well. And like when I actually gigged the Nobels ODR1, I had to kind of flip the whole thing around, where I was using a Tubescreamer type circuit for rhythms and using this for leads, because it just didn't work. Like, it wouldn't cut through as a rhythm guitar. It was just all mud. I couldn't really hear it. So I don't know, let me know your thoughts.